Hello! Today I'm going to be sharing some strategies for intermediate players. I'm assuming you already know how to play Terraforming Mars, but these tips won't be anything new to advanced players. I'll be talking about two different but related concepts: determining and controlling game pace, and opportunity cost and synergies. So if you've played collectible card games like Legends of Runeterra or Hearthstone, there's a term in those types of games called "Who's the Beatdown?" The idea being that one player needs to end the game sooner than the other player because the longer the game goes on, the less chance that the beatdown player will win. So if you're playing an aggressive deck, you need to end the game quickly before a control player can take control of the board. However, sometimes you're playing against a deck even more aggressive than your own aggressive deck, and suddenly they're the beatdown and you need to defend yourself until you can take control of the board. So when you're playing Terraforming Mars, it's a good idea to ask yourself, who's the Terraformer? Who wants the game to end quickly? This usually depends on the engine you've built and the engines your opponents have built. Here's a couple of things to think about when figuring out who's the Terraformer. Number 1, card draw. If you have no card draw and your opponents have a lot of card draw, then you are probably the Terraformer. The longer the game goes on, the higher the chance of your opponents finding insanely efficient cards that you can compete with. Because you have no playable cards in the drafts, they will easily out-efficiency you and win the game. Number 2, UNMI or a heavy TR strategy. Usually, if a player is rushing to get TR, then they are getting production and VP, but at the expense of not building a more efficient engine. Because of this, the longer the game goes, the greater the chance they will eventually lose to a more efficient engine. Number 3, heat production. Usually the player with the high heat production is looking to end the game quickly. Heat production is the most inefficient production you can invest in and is worthless once the heat track maxes outside of Thermalist Award and Helion. Therefore, you ideally want to finish the heat track and the game quickly. If the game drags on for a long time, you'll just have a bunch of wasted heat sitting there, not doing anything to help you continue to score and develop. Number 4, the current placements. Usually the person who's winning is the Terraformer. They want the game to end quickly because they are winning. The players who are in last place usually want to slow the game down so they have a chance to come back with a better engine. Pay special attention to the milestones because the shorter the game, the bigger the advantage of having 5 points for 8 mega credits. Usually, a player who has 2 milestones has an interest in ending the game quickly. Number 5, Jovians. The Jovian player will need to end the game to go long enough to afford to play all their Jovians and Molts. If you are the non-Jovian players, you need to end the game quickly enough the Jovian player cannot afford to play all their multipliers. The Jovian player wants the game to slow down so they can play all their Jovians, but not so much that the game continues after the Jovians have been played. So it's a very dynamic role on who's the Terraformer when those are in play. Now that we've talked about who wants to end the game, let's talk about when the game ends. In my experience, a normal 3-player game will last 10 generations on average. I've seen some games as quick as 7 generations, I've seen some go 13 plus, but on average 10 generations is what I would expect. It's important to note that the generation that the game ends will be the most important factor in which strategy wins the game. If you're the Terraformer, then ideally you want the game to end in Gen 9 or sooner. Removing that extra generation from the engine builder will remove a lot of their scoring potential. If you are the engine builder, then ideally the game will go 11 plus generations. If you're a Jovian player, you want the game to end the generation you play your last Jovian multiplier. Usually this is Gen 10, but it can vary depending on your production. Continuing on the topic of when the game will end, what generation the game will end is the primary thing that should be considered when thinking about if you should play production cards. If we find Sponsors in Gen 3, should we play it? Sponsors is 6 mega credits with a 3 mega credit draft cost, so it will take 5 generations to pay off and turn a profit. So in Gen 8, we will see our first profit and will likely result in 5 mega credits more than the initial investment at the end of the game. So 5 mega credits is roughly an extra victory point at the end of the game, so we can simplify and say it will be a free point if we play it now. That makes it worth playing, unless it prevents an even more efficient card from being played. Now, let's think about this in terms of the earlier discussion on who's the Terraformer. If, at Gen 3, you can already tell that your opponent's engine is too dangerous and you need to end the game by Gen 8 to win, then it makes no sense to play Sponsors, because it's not going to pay off. The earlier in the game you are, the harder it is to be able to accurately make those determinations, but it is something you should be asking yourself during the game. So let's say you've determined that you're the terraformer. How should you approach your game plan? The shorter the game, the more the milestones matter. So try and claim milestones and invest in the ground game. Those are typically the strongest ways to score well in short games. Also, be looking for terraforming events to help finish off the lagging global parameters. Cards like Giant Ice Asteroid and Deimos Down are invaluable for the terraformer player if temperature is the lagging parameter. I would consider that grabbing them over Earth Catapult or AI Central in Gen 5 or 6 if I'm the terraformer and it looks like temperature will be the lagging parameter. So let's say that you've determined that you're the engine builder. How should you approach the game plan? Do not touch the lagging parameter. If temperature is a lagging parameter, do not invest in heat. Make sure not to pass stuff like lava flows, nuke zone, Giant Ice Asteroid, and Deimos Down to the terraformer in the draft. It's actually not a bad idea as the engine builder to terraform in the non-lagging parameter. For example, if the terraformer has plant production, it is a good idea to take some of the O2TR via mining expedition, plantation, steelworks, your own plant production, etc. Just make sure it doesn't disrupt your engine building too much. Now we're going to go into the separate but related topic of opportunity cost and synergies. So say that you get your 10 cards and you have nothing you can play except solar power, and you think to yourself, well, Terraforming Mars is an engine building game, so it's in my interest to play any card I can to get maximum production value. Well, now Gen 2 comes around and you find IO Mining Industries in your hand. This is a card that can define your entire strategy. It gives 8 production a generation. Unfortunately, you only have 35 mega credits this generation and are unable to play it because you spent 14 cash on solar power earlier. Was that 1 power production in VP worth missing out on 8 extra production in Gen 2? The term for this is called opportunity cost, and you engage in it every day. One definition of opportunity cost is the potential benefits an individual, investor, or business misses out on when choosing one alternative over another. If I spend all my money on my rent, I don't have the ability to go to the fancy restaurant. So when you're looking at playing cards, you need to consider if they are good enough to give up on playing future cards that may be better. This ties in well with another concept, which is synergies. There are several powerful combinations you need to be aware of in Terraforming Mars. To name a few of them, Mars University and Olympus Conference with science tags, Decomposers, Ecozone, and Viral Enhancers, Media Group and Optimal Arrow Breaking, Space Discounts, discounts to all cards, etc. So when you get a card like Research, there's an opportunity cost beyond just the cost of the card. If you play it before you find Mars University and Olympus Conference, you're giving up on those synergies. If you have both of those cards, then when you play Research, you're drawing 5 cards with Research instead of 2. Very powerful. But there's also the possibility that you'll never see Mars U or Olympus Conference all game, and waiting so long on Research was pointless. So when do you decide when to play a card? Well, it's impossible to give a 100% correct answer. That being said, there are a few general rules I follow for synergies. Rule number 1. Will I be able to do anything with the new options presented to me? If I have 11 mega credits remaining in hand, and I have a Research without having seen Mars U or Olympus Conference, then I will not play Research. The reason being is that I'm spending all my money on seeing 2 cards, and I won't be able to do anything with those 2 cards. Therefore, it makes sense to wait another generation to see if I can find those synergies. It's also worth noting that the value of cards will decrease as the game goes on. You'll have less generations to reap the benefits of production cards, repetitive card draw, etc. That means the longer you wait, the higher the chance of hitting unviable cards. This means you should also consider the opportunity cost of waiting to play Research. Again, make sure that you have money available to play any impactful cards you might want to draw before playing card draw with no synergies. Rule number 2. Does the card give enough to justify its cost without the synergies? If I have Aeos Chasma in hand, but I don't have an animal, or decomposers, or plants, is it worth playing? It's 16 mega credits for 1 victory point, 3 plants, and 2 mega credit production. That's a total value of 5 mega credits for the victory point, 6 mega credits for the 3 plants, and money production of 10 generations on average minus the current generation times 2. So if it's Gen 8 and I can't convert my plants from playing it, then it's 15 mega credits of value at best on average for 16 mega credits. So it's not worth playing. I need to wait for more synergies. Let's look for another example. Lava flows on Gen 1 when the temperature is at minus 24 degrees Celsius. While it would be great to get Media Group, Earth Catapult, Anti-Grav, and the rest of those global discounts, ocean adjacencies, etc., if we play this card Gen 1, then we'll pay 21 mega credits for 2 TR, a tile placement bonus, and 1 heat production, which will likely become another TR over the course of the game. This is reasonable value. If we wait for Media Group and all the global discounts, then we could lower the cost to 13 mega credits for 2 TR if we found all of that. But let's say it takes us until Gen 7 when we actually find all that stuff and play those synergies, then we missed out on 2 production from that 2 TR over 6 generations and the heat production. So waiting on the synergies actually lost us money as opposed to just playing the card back then. But take note about the opportunity costs though. Playing lava flows early may have kept you from playing some of those global discounts, so again you have to weigh the opportunity cost of playing the lava flows there. Rule number 3. Do I need to high roll to win the game? Sometimes you have to play to your outs. If I'm far behind, then playing cards without any synergies won't be enough to win. I might have to wait to play my space events until I find -6 all space cards with Media Group and Optimal Arrow Breaking. I might not be able to play my plant cards until I can get the Decomposers with the Eco Zone and the Viral Enhancers. Now, no, this usually won't work out. These combos are hard to assemble from the deck of 208 cards, and I would not bet they would work out most times, but part of games is knowing when you need to trust in the heart of the cards and hope that you draw the perfect card to help you get back into the game. So those are my tips on Terraforming Mars. I hope these were helpful to you and will help you improve in your games. Let me know if there's any other topics that you would like for me to cover in the future, and have a great day.